Now, with that in mind, I'm going to transition into our topic, which is joint venturing. So we're gonna really slow this down a little bit and pull joint venturing back to a level that's accessible for everybody. Because the term joint venture, if you're new to real estate investing, what the heck are we talking about? So we'll make it simple. A joint venture is when two people who have different sets of resources and skills get together and form a business partnership with the intention in a real estate context, usually of doing a real estate deal. The most typical kind of joint venture that we see is often buy and hold real estate. So you buy a property, one person does all the work to acquire the property, rent it out, and manage it, and then the other person just provides the funding. That's a bare bones basic joint ventures. We know that because Edmonton has become such a hotbed for the BRRRR method, there's a lot of joint ventures where there's a BRRRR component involved, where you're renovating the property before you engage in the hold. So there's there's a bunch of different ways to do a joint venture. Adrian's going to be talking about a BRRRR method joint venture. Adrian and I are going to be talking about a multifamily joint venture, and then Russell's going to be talking about joint ventures in general. So, to start from the end and work our way back, Russell Westgard, our keynote speaker. I'm sure a lot of you have heard him speak. I remember hearing Russell speak when I was in my early 20s at the Real Estate Investment Network. I mean, that guy quite literally wrote the book on joint venturing. He did. I've read the book. That was one of the first books I bought when I got into real estate investing, was reading Russell's book. So, we've really got one of the most well-known leaders in the real estate community in Western Canada who's going to come share with us today, and that's a real treat. To have someone as knowledgeable and as passionate as Russell come talk is always something that we want to keep our eyes on. So thrilled to have him as our keynote. Adrian and I, so just a little win share here. Adrian and I just raised $1 million to buy a $3.5 million apartment building. Whoop whoop, high five, let's celebrate. I'm pretty stoked on it. It was a very, very complicated deal. And shout out to Bonnie Doon again. The building is located in the Bonnie Doon area. It's technically just on the other side of the road in Hollywood, but we're pretty stoked on that. And for those of you who are looking to level up your joint ventures, there's the levels involved to it. Now we're not just raising one pool of capital from one person to do one deal. There were multiple partners involved. There's a corporate structure involved. It's a multifamily building. It's similar in principle, because at the end of the day, we're getting people together and buying a property, but it's different in a lot of complex ways. So thank you for all the congratulations. So Adrian and I are going to have a very candid conversation and probably a little bit of Q&A about that deal, because for those of you that are curious, this is a learning moment by us sharing. It's a case study. It's a real live deal that we are getting the keys to the building within a few weeks here. So it's pretty dope. Pretty stoked. Very proud of Adrian for the hard work he did. Great partner to work with. I couldn't be more thrilled to call him my business partner. And for those of you that know him through Mogul, you also know he's one of the most talented realtors in the city. He's in 3 years as a realtor, he's stacked up like 4 or 5 very major signature awards. So tooting his horn, but it's only because he deserved it. And he's a very humble guy, so he's probably not going to do much bragging on his own behalf when he takes the stage. So I got to do it for him because he is a wildly talented individual. And speaking of Adrian, I actually met Adrian as a client first. And then in the course of that client relationship, he let me know that he was interested in starting in real estate. And I was impressed by watching him do what he did, and said, well, hey, why don't you come join my team and work with me? And one thing led to another, and here we are, business partners on a $3.5 million apartment building. Who would have thunk it? But we're going to roll the clock back a little bit, right to the start. And we're going to go right back to one of Adrian's first deals where, for those of you who are doing the BRRRR method, Adrian has led several BRRRR-style joint ventures with a couple of different business partners. And so the question that we're posing in this first conversation is, and this is a very important question to pose, because for those of you that are starting off in joint ventures, often one of the biggest hurdles that we have to overcome or that we perceive as overcoming is answering the question, well, why would we split the deal 50-50? Why would somebody put in all the money and get the financing and then only take 50% of the return on investment? And it seems like this fantastical idea, but I can tell you, I have done close to $30 million worth of joint ventures, and every single one of them, without fail, is a typical classic RAIN 50-50 JV split. That's my structure. That's my model. I don't get a lot of pushback. So for those of you who are just getting into it, we want to flip the tables around and actually talk about this question from the perspective of a money partner, of a cash partner, of an investor who was more than happy to invest in a project, was more than happy to share the returns 50-50. And the managing partner was Adrian. The investing partner is Adrian's business partner. And so if we can promote them to panelists, I'm just going to do a little Q&A roundtable with them so that we can understand the mindset of a money partner, because the best way to attract a money partner and to build a strong business relationship with a money partner is understanding the mindset of a money partner, so that you know what their needs are, you know what their priorities are, and you can have a conversation that's in the right context. Because it's really not guys, it's really not that hard to do a joint venture. Easy for James to say he's done a bunch of joint ventures, but everybody started with the first step. And my first step was 50 or 60 odd. Hey, can I get your feedback? I'm this nerdy 20-year-old who has a business idea. So everybody starts somewhere, but so we're going to do that conversation. So we've got Adrian and Brent. Adrian was and is the managing partner in a Burr-style investment. I am seeing Adrian as frozen, and oh, there we go. He unfroze. I just had a half moment of panic. And here are the Kinsellas. It looks like you guys are enjoying the comfort of your backyard on a hot, beautiful summer day, which is absolutely thrilling. So I've already introduced Adrian. Adrian, why don't you introduce the Kinsellas and introduce yourself, and we can talk a little bit about what it means to be the investor partner in the deal.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for handing it over, James. Hey, Brent and Wendy, how are you guys doing? You're looking good, you're enjoying the heat in a beautiful summer day. I love it.
Yeah. Porta Backyarda, that's where we are.
Porta Backyard. There you go. Only can travel that far, I guess. So yeah, as James mentioned, so I'm an agent, realtor on Mogul Realty Group. I met James through him being my realtor, and it was actually through getting a property and a joint venture that I was led to James and what his group brought. And so my business partner on the working side is a friend of mine. His name is Matt. And so Matt and I actually met Brent and Wendy at a Keyspire event. So we were in an event, and I did a Mogul Mastermind presentation on finding joint venture partners. But to give you guys a very quick and brief story, basically in that I think it was about a 2 or 3 hour event, just a kind of an evening quick event. They did one cool thing where they said, okay, who's a working partner? And people raised their hands. Who is a contractor? And people, half the room, couple people raised their hands. And then they said, who's a cash partner? Who has some money who wants to invest in real estate? And there wasn't many hands that went up, but you saw Brent kind of raise his hand a little bit. And so Matt and I dialed in. We're like, we got to talk to these two people. And, we went through hell and high water to make it happen, and running out to the parking lot because we thought they left, and trying to flag down their cars and all this crazy stuff. And lo and behold, we got their business card and had a conversation with them, and things just kind of blossomed from there.
This isn't a presentation about how to attract joint venture partners, but I can tell you right now, and I've had similar experiences, fortune favors the bold, and those who make moves are the ones who get to do the business. So, I'm sure that at some level, Brent and Wendy, you guys were impressed by the gusto of those two young go-getters, and it left you with the right impression, knowing that if they're working that hard to do a deal, they're probably going to work that hard to get a deal across the finish line. So, I mean, maybe that's going to be a question we're going to save for a couple down the road. But the first question we're going to ask is completely independently of the business relationship that you formed with Adrian and Matt. At some point, you thought to yourselves, okay, we like this real estate gig. We are very interested in being part of real estate deals. However, we also know that it's not really our gig to do the work. We don't want to be doing the management. We're comfortable being a money partner. So can you walk us through the journey that you took in the decision-making process to know that being a money partner was ultimately what you wanted to be?
Well, we both have careers. We're both busy people. Both have lots of activities and interests outside of what we do. And we intuitively knew that real estate was where we wanted to go. But again, how do you get there? We had no expertise. We didn't know where to start. So we wanted to investigate what it would be like to do a joint venture with somebody. We had no idea. We had no idea the split. We had no idea what our role would be. We didn't know anything about it. So that's how we started. Actually, it started with Wendy pushing me forward on it, really, is what it came out to. But
yeah, it's people like us that have sat and watched their retirement savings be very, very lackluster for many, many years, and you finally decide we have to do something differently if we're going to get where we want to go. So we had to change our thinking on how we were going to get where we wanted to go to even be open to this idea.
You just can't put it in a sock and stuff under your bed forever. It's good. You have to do something with it.
That's so true.
Yeah.
And where did you first hear the words joint venture, or how did you get introduced to the concept of a joint venture?
Wendy got me to go to a Keyspire event with our daughter,
Got it.
and look at it as something we should do. And I went there with not a closed mind, but not as open as it was. And it opened up my mind to, doesn't matter when you start. I mean, we're obviously, by the color of my hair compared to yours, we're not, we're not the same,
we're a little
same age
down
group.
the road.
But it doesn't matter when you start. You got to take a start sometime. So we got quite excited about that, and then joined Keyspire. And from there, it was more a matter of, well, we made some bad choices, like a lot of people do. It was there going, okay, you know what? We want to get involved. We want to be involved. How are we going to do this? We could go out and buy a property and struggle through this and buy in the wrong spot, buy the wrong location, put the wrong money, throw good money after bad, all those kind of things. Or then the boys caught us outside the doors of the event, and we had a chat about what to do. So that was where it came from.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, I know Adrian and Matt well enough to know that they are very enthusiastic, energetic, and they're not shy about follow-ups. So, but the question I'm probably going to ask before that is, were there multiple different options involved when you were interviewing partners, or did you basically focus on Matt and Adrian and hear them out first and decide to go with them?
We had some other people that wanted to work with us through Keyspire. In fact, lots. There was, right? Think about the allows.
Well, the balance was very weighted towards the working partners versus the financial partners, right? In that situation, so you could have had your pick if you wanted to explore it all. But I mean, we didn't. We speed dated Matt and Adrian, and that was that. So
awesome. So
there was another piece to that too, is that it turned out very quickly that we had some linkage with Matt and Adrian both.
Oh, okay.
Family history, location,
A little short connection there.
some trust. So
there's a high level of trust created very quickly, that I knew that these two young guys weren't gonna screw us over in any way, shape, or form, and that we could work into a trust. And it's proven that over 3 houses now.
Yeah.
And there's an extremely high level of trust both ways, I believe. So that's been the big thing for us, is the trust.
That's amazing. So if I'm hearing you correctly, one of the major deciding factors when you were interviewing different joint venture partners, it was the trust factor that, Adrian and Matt were able to form, and that was helped along by some family connection.
And they did have expertise. I mean, they were young in the business, but at the same time, they brought good ideas to the table. They talked about where we want to have houses in the market. So it wasn't just, oh God, we know these two guys. This should be great. We should go together.
Yeah.
No, here was a good idea, and here was some good background. But guess what? The benefit is, or the side benefit is, that we also know the families. We know these people.
Yeah.
So that felt good. But they brought something to the table, and it's been proven out by, I think, the houses that we bought into, the way they've approached.
Yeah.
As being landlords, and also attracting new tenants. It's been a great relationship.
That's wonderful. I guess the next question I would have then is, did you have an idea in your mind of the type of real estate deal you wanted to participate in before engaging Adrian and Matt? Or did they make the proposal on the type of deal they were going to do, and that's what helped your decision-making process?
I think we were fairly on the same page. They're probably more of the business heads. We tend to be, we want a nice home for people. We want, and so we need that balance of, listen, this is a business transaction. We're not, so I think we complement each other. Having shared values, I think, is extremely important on what are you trying to achieve. I mean, we are trying to achieve homes for people, not just cash. So I think, doing the renovations and all of that, we were kind of on the same page that we wanted these to be nice places for people to live.
Yeah, the other side of that is that we went to a presentation earlier on with through Keyspire, where they brought in, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but done very well in the Ontario market, and he really preached clean, safe, and affordable, which is not what we were really after, right? The clean, safe, affordable is a good way to look at it, but he also talked about a lot of different things, like if you've got a bad tenant, I mean, in cases he bought them out. Like, he actually made sure they not just paid them their money if they left the place in decent shape, but he gave them a bonus when they left. Certain things like gifting and all kinds of good ideas that they had. But we didn't want to be the low end landlord. So we liked the idea of having nice properties,
long-term tenants, some loyalty, and Adrian and Matt have really respected that and done a good job of finding the right people.
Yeah. And to jump in there too, I definitely think that it gave us that nice balance between having it as a business transaction, but also stepping in the feet of a tenant and walking through that property and saying, okay, can we build a place or make a place feel like something we would want to live in ourselves? And I think that some joint venture partners, when you're looking at that cash perspective and the difference between having a working partner and a capital partner, is sometimes what happens is the capital partner is so fixated on how much money they're going to be pushing out, where the working partner is all about that cash flow. So I think sometimes you can have that butting of heads perspective, because you want to make sure they don't want to push out too much capital in that project, and the working partner wants to push the high cash flow properties. And sometimes that comes with, having poor repairs and maintenance, having not the highest end finishings, things like that. So it's that nice balance that I found that we came together and were on the same page for.
Yeah.
We haven't made a nickel yet, but I expect we will be. I'm actually confident we will be. So
that's awesome. All right, well, let's shift gears into, so you met these guys, you like what they were presenting, you built some trust, et cetera, et cetera. Now it's time to do a deal. So a big important part of doing a deal is the joint venture agreement. And one thing I've experienced in many, many deals is, we're looking at a couple dozen pages of legalese with a whole bunch of minutia in it, and that can be the real sticking point. Where at a high level, we're all into doing a real estate deal, but the devil's in the details, and that can be a problem. So maybe walk us through the process from your perspective on how the final conversation, negotiation, rollout, and approval of that joint venture agreement went for you guys.
We just met on several occasions before they even proposed the agreement. So a lot of it had been discussed, but it was getting down to we need to put this in writing. So they did the work. They brought, the proposal, and we went through it after Not initially, not the first thing we did. It was after a lot of discussions and, like I said, that all getting on the same page and agreeing to a lot of things up front, and then basically formalizing it through the agreement.
To add to that, it can be a bit scary when you're a first-time investor in a real estate property, and you haven't gone out and done another deal, you haven't researched anybody else. You're going, am I paying too much? Is 50% too much? Are we being? Well, there's that trust factor. You just don't know. I mean, so I looked at it, and I actually looked at what it would cost us to manage a property. And I went out to a couple of the firms. I just had a look, and when I went out, and I came back and said, this really isn't a bad deal. I said, this is actually a good deal. We not only get these guys expertise in locating properties, we get them project managing our renovations.
Yeah.
We get them looking after our, from the landlord tenant side, we get them recruiting, even though it's coming out like now,
alone is,
now we're paying for somebody,
yeah.
But at the same time, they brought all that to the table, and we're not paying, who's one of the big property managers, whatever, one of those local firms.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, we're working directly with these guys, and yeah, they're going to make some money on it, but so are we. And the return on it looks to be really solid. I'm not unhappy with them making money. There's nothing wrong with a little profit on both sides of the table.
Part of the conversation, now that you have this experience, you could take to somebody and add up the hours that you actually put in to the working side of the deal. And I think, it would be hard to debate the value.
100%.
Yeah.
And I know, and maybe you guys remember, but there was one activity that we did in Keyspire, and it was basically writing out every single task and responsibility a working partner will do in that transaction over, say a 5-year hold period.
Yeah.
And you can have over like 50, 60, 70, sometimes even 100 different tasks and responsibilities that a working partner will come to form that joint venture. So I think it's a good activity. And whenever I coach a new joint venture partner or coach somebody who's looking to get into joint ventures as a working partner, it's a task that I say, sit down and just think about everything that you would actually be doing. And it is super helpful for them to understand where their value is. And it gives them that extra confidence to come to that coffee meeting, to chat with a family member. And they feel like that value that they're bringing is worth that 50%.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it really is a good activity to go through. And, the thing about, and I'm just going to throw in my 2 cents here, the thing about a joint venture is that when you're steeped in the real estate world, you think about a joint venture as a real estate deal, but really joint venturing is a term that applies to business deals, not real estate deals. And you can have a joint venture between, people with money and someone who wants to start a restaurant, or somebody that wants to start a clothing store, or somebody that wants to start a lemonade stand, or you name it. Business is business, and joint ventures happen all the time where there's an investor partner and a working partner. And the work required to bring a business idea from concept to execution is pretty astronomical, and the education that goes into learning how to do it is pretty astronomical. So, so it's awesome that we all came together. Well, you guys all came together, and all agreed that there was a fair distribution of profits in relation to the contributions to making the deal happen. So, Brent and Wendy, I kind of want to start thinking just from a mindset perspective. What important advice would you give to someone who's a potential working partner about the investor's mindset?
Let me just ask you a question about that. So when you say about the mindset, you mean like what takes you into this, or?
Yeah, like when a working partner, when a partner is sitting down with, so you guys, like when you were assessing Matt and Adrian as a potential business partner, you may not have had a formalized checklist where you're checking boxes off of but you had some kind of internal checklist of things that needed to be satisfied in order for you to be comfortable doing business with these guys. So what does that look like, so that people who are thinking about being working partners know what is important to shape their business around?
I think the very first thing is you do have to have an idea what you expect to get out of it. So I will say Keyspire was an expensive learning experience, but we did learn what a joint venture was, and we did learn what the returns could be like. So that was maybe the first, really important part. And the second part to me is that the people you're going to go into business with have to bring something to the table. And a lot of the people that we had approached us through Keyspire, et cetera, didn't have any experience, or they had some experience or varied experience. But some of them were just people like you were originally, wanting to get started, but you didn't really know where to go either. When you first started, that's what the people were meeting with. So I met Adrian and Matt. They brought expertise to the table that we didn't have. So that's the checklist. What did they have? Well, they had
They knew the market.
They knew the market. That was probably their biggest strength. Is they knew the market and they knew where we wanted to be. At least they sold it like they knew where they wanted to be. And I believe that was what they did. I think they had thought it through. They knew where we wanted to be. The whole LRT, the South Edmonton, everything. The part where I wasn't so sure that they brought a lot to the table, but it proved out that they knew the right people was from the contracting side. So that went very smooth for us. So they're not contractors. I've got more contracting background than they do, but they know people that know how to do that business, and they also know how to get it done.
Yeah.
Everything from the design of the building, like our basement suites that we put the big money into are nicer than our upstairs. There's no doubt in my mind. The upstairs were all done nicely. They're all done conservatively and smartly. They spent the right money. But these guys, with our working part, like their contractors, built beautiful basement suites
From
like
scratch. Yeah.
Places I'd want to live. I go, that's not a bad basement suite.
Mm-hmm.
If you gave me a walkout door on that basement suite, I'd stay in it for sure. But so they brought a lot of expertise to the table. I think that was my checklist. And then the next part was, do we think we can work with them? That's what we hit that immediately with these guys and figured out that, hey, you know what? We know who these guys are. There's a good solid background connection, and I trust them. We trust them, not just me, it's us. We trust them.
Yeah.
And I, we got that high level of trust. So those were things. Expertise, they brought it to the table. Good fit personality-wise. Do they have a business plan? Yes, they did. Are they connected to the right people? Yes, they are. And then from there, it's all right. Let's go and try this out.
I think you have to tell that investor, you have to come with a plan and a vision, not just enthusiasm. So it's great to be gung-ho and, saying, I don't have money, but I have all the time in the world or all the ambition. Have a plan, have a vision of what can be accomplished. A bit of a track record obviously would help, but if you're just starting out, that's tough. If you really don't know these people at all, you need to have some kind of references. I mean, we relied on our knowledge of those families and those connections, but if we didn't know Matt and Adrian, they would have had some kind of a resume or some references for us to check. Or obviously we wouldn't have put our faith in them. So yeah.
Good point.
100%. We looks like James had a little loss on internet connection there. But yeah.
He's sailing.
Yeah. But I think that, that brings up a really good point too. And from us, when we made our first connection, it wasn't a pitch. It was more like, let's figure out what you guys are doing on real estate. Let's see what we're doing on real estate, and let's see if we can come together. And from that kind of exploration conversation that we had is where we found out that we had some family connections, that that connection was already there. And so I think the trust became apparent right from the beginning, and it bloomed over the time that we spent together.
Yes.
So again, to bring up your point, Wendy, that you just referenced and talked about, was having those people that you can check on. If there's no track record and trust that you can have, reference checks are definitely important. Mm-hmm. So for you guys, is that something that moving forward, is that something that is really important for you guys, or maybe just talk a little bit about that?
Well, for me, one thing we didn't really do was the track record part of it. I mean, we agreed to go into this saying, even though you had done some, you were more experienced than Matt, I think, at that point in time. But I would say to somebody that somebody else knew with not our relationship, to get get some reference projects that they've done. Like I'm really interested in some of the stuff you're doing, like not putting money in necessarily, but interested in some of the things you're doing
Come on.
outside of this. Well, no, I don't have that kind of money, but I mean, you know what I mean. But yeah, but it's getting to know, get the references, find out what they've done, you know, how it's worked for them, and maybe getting actually being a little harder on them. I would maybe be a little harder on a new partner now than I was on you guys, but it didn't work bad for us at all. In fact, it worked great for us. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and we progressed based on success, right? So from house 1 to house 2 to house 3 wouldn't have happened, right, if things had gone awry with 1 or 2. So, you know, if people deliver what they say they will, and then they're going to build that partnership and that business up with someone.
100%. And I think like that's a good point too on that progression of the relationship. And it's like any good business person, and especially for us as realtors, you know, our bread and butter is repeat and referral business. And so I think going back to joint ventures is if you have that good working relationship, if everything's like you have that structure, you've already built all that stuff, it only makes sense to continue that partnership rather than going out and redoing that whole process and potentially not knowing what's on the other side.
Yeah. And you learn, I mean, right, we've had lessons learned. So to carry on and make good use of those lessons learned makes sense.
Yeah, I've got a business. I won't say he's a partner. I do work for their company, you know, through the company I'm with. And he's a very successful person, is all I'm going to say. And he said to me the one time, because he said that I didn't like tapping into him as a friend. He said, Brent, he says, why wouldn't I want to do business with a friend and somebody I trust? So I don't feel bad about talking to me about business and me working with you. Yeah. So why wouldn't I? So it's the same with us. Why wouldn't I want to continue on with it? We've developed a friendship, a trusting relationship, and it's worked really well. Like, I mean, you know, now I'm the contracting the landscaper. You know?
Mm-hmm. I really liked what James said at the beginning about legacy, because coincidentally we have 3 homes now with you, and we have 3 kids, and that's not accidental.
No.
Right? Because it really is about what are you going to leave as a legacy. That's something that can be counted on, and that's important to us.
Yeah.
100%. And I know I've met a couple of people who have decided that to be their legacy for their kids. And, you know, they're like, my as soon as their son or daughter is born, their plan is to buy a home. And when they get to the age of going to university or college, you know, most of that property is paid off, and they can pull, refinance, sell, and have a huge lump of money in order for them to actually. I love the James with the double picture here.
Yeah, me too. That's great.
That'd go good on the patio right here.
Oh my goodness gracious. Hello, everybody. So it seems as some technical difficulties with Zoom tonight, and Jen expertly suggested I jump back in with my phone. So that's why my window has changed a little bit. Anyways, Adrian, being the exceptional conversationalist and presenter that he is, I think just thank you, Adrian. Why don't you take control of the conversation, keep it going, and just lead us into the next topic?
Yeah. So basically, what we were just kind of wrapping up there, but talking about just making sure that that relationship is strong, and that. Can you guys still hear me? Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Sounded a little muffly on my end.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it goes back to that trust thing. That's been apparent from, you know, the beginning of this conversation to kind of the end. It's all about building that relationship with your working partner, and every person who comes together to build that partnership brings something different. And I know that from our perspective, you know, being able to use Brent's connection for landscaping, as he was just mentioning, has been fantastic. And I know from Brent's perspective too, when we had this conversation, he said, you know what, guys, I'm interested in learning a little bit more about what you guys do in your real estate, and I'm not going to be working forever. So if you give me some projects here and there, I'm definitely game. I want to help out. So having that ability to rely on each other and help each other out has been not only a very transactional relationship, but it's almost been more like a friendship and something that we're growing together. Yeah. So James, anything else that you had last minute conversations or questions about for Brent and Wendy here?
Covered a lot of really good ground. One of the things that was happening in that conversation for everybody that was watching is Brent and Wendy said some very, very insightful things that are really worth going back and watching this recording again, because I didn't want to interrupt the flow of the conversation and point out every single insight as it was happening. But this was just absolutely fabulous. And Brent and Wendy, it's just so gracious of you to come and sit on the patio with us and share your story tonight. So thank you so much. I know everybody watching learned a lot, and it's just such a valuable perspective to get, because very often we'll get experts like Adrian and I talking about how we attracted our joint venture partner, but we very rarely get to hear from the joint venture partner themselves. So that's a very unique and a very special thing to be able to get a glimpse of. And I just couldn't be more thrilled and more appreciative that you were willing to take the time. So thank you so much. And, congratulations on doing so many great deals with Adrian. I know him and Matt have worked very, very hard. I've been on the other end of that, just watching them from my perspective and vantage point, and they're really doing great work. And I'm just thrilled to see that you guys have all connected so well.
Yeah.
Well,
they're still on probation, just so they know.
No,
we're happy.
We wouldn't have gone on and done this if we didn't feel the way we did, and everything's from the heart. And and as brand new grandparents, we're just the happiest bunch of people in the world.
Just
so
like,
there you go.
Love it.
Ecstatic. So yeah, I mean, just be brave and go and be successful, right? Don't hold yourselves back.
Trying to get our kids motivated to do stuff. That's our next challenge, is to get them, help.
We were going to adopt Matt and Adrian, but they already had parents, so yeah.
Okay, we'll go to the next family vacation. Sorry.
We want to get our children involved in the properties. We want to get them moving forward and get them involved and getting a stake into things that we're doing as well. So not just giving it to them, we want them to be involved in what we're doing. So that's kind of the next challenge. So we'll see where things go. But
it's nice to see you guys have a passion and you're following it, and that's terrific.
Oh, thank you so much for saying so. And thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it. So we'll let you go here. Stick around if you're so inclined. And let's keep the conversation going.